Excellent. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I guess we're going to continue now with special services. And Devin, you're up.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I will start by going over the information that was handed out in the executive summary and talk about a little bit about the process and what I do in order to put the budget together. Talk about some of the key budget drivers, and then just give a little bit of information in terms of even placement decisions as recent as yesterday that are not captured in the budget that I put forward, but also the implications for this current fiscal year, because I think it's important to put that information out there. So first of all, when it comes to creating the budget, I get input and requests from all of my special education teachers and related service providers. Those come into me. I go through that. I'm also looking at our numbers, services, and so forth, and make sure that what is moved forward to the superintendent and ultimately to you takes into account all the needs of the students that I know of at this point in time. And I know for those of you who have been on the committee, you hear me say that all the time, that, I do my best to capture what I know at this moment. But in essence, everything that is in my budget is there to meet an IEP need, which is required by law. And then also the materials and so forth that are needed for the teachers and support staff to utilize in educating students with educational disabilities. So when you look at my key budget drivers, I don't know if you recall, but last year I had decreases pretty much across the board, I think, which ended up in a decrease in the budget. This year, you'll see the trend is the other way. So when you look at my key budget drivers, it is tuition, transportation, and professional services. Although professional services is flat, there's no increase or decrease, there are increases in both tuition and transportation. Tuition, change in student need, different placements at play, but then also even our state approved special education schools, per the regulations, can have a 5% increase in their tuition for next year. So those are some of the things that were at play, which leads to the $27,000 or $27,674 increase. I'm not sure, based on even decisions that were made yesterday with respect to tuition, that I've proposed enough in the line, only because I have a new placement that I'm looking for as of yesterday. I don't know where that placement will end, but that is not captured here and here. So I leave that to you because that's something that we need to factor in. In addition, transportation, obviously there's been a general theme this morning with respect to the increased costs in transportation, which you also see in my budget. Right now it is showing a $25,385 increase. However, with a placement comes transportation. So with placement decision made yesterday, there's going to be a transportation cost that's going to be associated with that. At the same time, as you're all aware, we do have the reserve fund for special services that has, I believe, about $104,000. I have to say that at this point in October, I'm already in the red in my current fiscal year transportation line and will be in the red with my tuition line. So I will work on putting exact numbers together for you once I have an idea of where the placement will land, and then can come back at another meeting and share that information. But we haven't had to tap into it, but where things are going, it's kind of
for this current year.
For this current year, which then leads to needing possibly a warrant article to replenish.
So just, I know you're going through a summary, but it's not going to be in here. So you're saying that you just picked up another student.
Correct.
Will that student be here next year also? Okay, but those costs aren't in here.
They're not in here.
So do you have an estimate, or are you going to have one before this goes to the budget committee?
I will have one hopefully within the next week to week and a half, as soon as I secure a placement.
If not, we'll just have to arbitrarily put some number in there. I mean, you have to cover.
Yes. I do have an anticipated placement that is listed here, but that is the student that is being placed is not what I had in mind when creating the budget. So there is
There's
90
another one.
there is, so that is in there. So anyways, and then, so if I go over my key variances and my increases, I already hit upon the tuition. There is an increase in one of the LMS lines, and it's because teachers have asked for licenses for Reading Plus or Read Naturally to utilize with students. There is a $3,700 increase at the CHS level, and that is for tables and chairs with the special services conference room. We've kind of had hand-me-downs over the years.
Gross. It was gross 4 years ago. Like, I didn't even want to sit in them. They're gross.
So it definitely needs to be replaced. So that's why it's
That's not the room that we have our meetings in. Our school board meetings.
no.
No.
Because that's pretty bad too. But
Yeah, we want to talk about that
I
room.
know.
So that's why that is in there. There's also a $55,000 increase to the professional services in the school psychology realm of things. And that is, at this time, we are utilizing grant funding to contract for school psychology services at the high school level. It is a critical shortage area across the state. So many districts were not even able to contract for those services. And so I had to make the decision whether or not to put funds in professional services to contract for the services to meet student needs, knowing that the potential of being able to find somebody to hire is this year will probably even be harder than it was last year. So that's why there's an increase there. And then I already mentioned the increase in transportation. Decreases, there really aren't a whole lot of them. But there's a couple for 3,000. There's a couple others that were just over 1,000 that are not in my sheet. I apologize. But really those are just change in student need. One specific to the costs associated with sending staff on trips to support students. That was a decrease because last year we were projecting for the senior trip for this year. And next year I don't have students that would require that. So that's why there's a decrease there.
Corey, did you say that the funds for the school psychologist, because it's grant funded, would be separate from this and not
It's
in
not
here?
here. Yeah.
It's not in there.
It's separate. The federal grants are a separate fund entirely. They're not handled through the general fund.
So this 55,437 is not in this.
Because I won't have the 55,000 is in this budget, and it's because next year the grant funds will not be
Oh,
available
it's just for this
to
year.
maintain it.
Okay.
So that's why I had to move it into the general fund.
Okay,
All right.
so we'll begin. Page 1. So the first thing that jumped out at me, because I don't recall seeing this in the past, and maybe it's been there, under 330.
Yeah.
Nursing care for high school student.
Yes. So it's been in there for probably the past 5 or 6 years. This year it's significantly less because a student will age out, but it's 1-to-1 nursing services for a student.
Is the 6,000 on the first line, 272, is that for the meeting with just the special educators?
Yes. Training for special
But
educators.
is it the meetings we had talked about last year where,
Went to and I went to?
no, the meetings where last year? you put
No,
the
I think
budget-
those are specifically in Holly's budget. This is for specific professional development and training that I'm going to require of the staff. So
So
whether
not
it's
for
a meeting.
not for the special services meeting where the teachers.
No, this would be like if I'm sending them to an Orton Gillingham training or something like that.
So the other one is still in there somewhere?
I believe it's still in Holly. Yes.
Anything else on 1? Page 2. Page 3.
I just ask all of you, back to page 2 for a second, kind of just a general thing. Seems everything we look at from all 3 schools, but there's toners everywhere. Have you thought about just limiting it to, I know we talked about it, but it seems there's toners in everybody's budget.
Mhm.
Just putting it in one spot and saying, these are the 4 printers we have, and,
But special ed needs their own for
Special ed.
for privacy reasons.
but not color, I wouldn't think.
I would.
We have color printers specifically for our students with communication disorders. We print out PECS pictures because it's really hard to discern black and white photos. So we do have some color.
Page 3. All right, so I have, here it is again. So under supplies, same thing. I'm not sure if you consolidated. I don't recall where we went from 500, 500, 1,000, then up to 2,700. Now we're like 2,400. Where the jump happened. It started in last year's budget. Actually, well,
It
this
was
year's.
budgeted, but we only spent.
Right, we only spent
940.
947 and now we're back up to 2,400.
Yeah, they're certainly not. I mean, they're submitting the office supplies. They're certainly not spending it all based on the 3-year actuals.
So I get the same question I asked before. There's those posted easel pads again. I'm not sure how many you're buying, but you're spending $400 on them. It was the high school that was buying them, right, for 800?
Well, this is it. An example is the post-it easel pads, but it's office supplies altogether. So it's highlighters, folders for special education paperwork.
Well, the first line says classroom supplies, manipulatives, notebooks, etc., 400.
Yeah.
And office
And then
supplies,
office
post-it
supplies.
pads, highlighters, etc.
Paper cups,
Right.
rubber bands.
So it's not 400 specific to the post-it easel pads. This is what I'm trying to. So it's the special education folders that we have to keep the paperwork and anything that the case managers would use in the office.
I looked up the easel pads
Oh, that's
and so on Amazon, you can buy, it's 30 to a pack. So, you know, when you picture one of those things on the wall that you tear off, there's 30 sheets on there. You get 2 packs for $40. So you get 60 sheets for $40.
They're
They're not cheap.
That is
Why do they need
expensive.
some more freaking printers?
Maybe we should use small post-its.
Or masking tape.
One letter
A
on it.
lot of them though.
Yeah,
That,
they'll have to make a mural of them.
Just easel paper.
One letter for a Post-it.
I don't understand this. I'm going to make a motion to cut from that line, 610, $1,455 to bring it to $1,000, which is still more than what you've spent over the last 3 years.
Brian, you're cutting how much?
1,455.
I'll
What line,
second.
what line again, Brian?
610 supplies and bring it down to an even $1,000. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained. 4-1. Motion carries. Page 3. I'm sorry, page 4. Five. So again, I take it 734, this HP color laser jet printer copier. Those are for toners. That's what the high school said. Is yours the same or is that a copier you're buying?
Looks like
No,
that's a
it's
printer.
printers for
Printer.
three different locations. I think one is sufficient.
So these are actually printers you're buying?
Yes, there was a request for 3.
And so I take it at 500 each, right?
Yes.
Where are you?
Right.
Oh, I see it.
734.
Yeah. Okay.
Because in the high school, I believe we had the exact same description, but he said they were toners.
No, there are toners on the next page at the top of page 5.
Isn't toner the replacement cartridges?
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he had the name of the printer and then the toner code was next to
Oh,
it. This
I
is
see.
actually the printer. I want to make sure you're under the 734 line,
Yep.
that first line for 1,500.
Yep.
And Devin, explain it again. It's 3 printers in what room?
So the request from the high school was a printer in one for 248, one for 246, and then one for 128, which is on the first floor. I think based upon the student need and what would need to be done, at this point, one, I think would be sufficient. So if you're looking to,
What are they using right now, out of curiosity?
the regular copiers
Okay.
that are and right now they have to release them from the print station.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a confidentiality issue.
Make a motion to reduce 734 by $1,000, bringing it down to 1,125.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Anything else on 5? Six.
So I just had a question about membership for title boxing and therapeutic riding lessons.
Yeah.
What are those?
So we utilize, the related services, but we've been utilizing title boxing for a variety of reasons. So it's a vocational experience, so there's different things that they can do. They're also working their core strength. It's engaging, so we get student participation. But it's for our students that are here with us until 21, to get them out into the community and utilizing some of their communication skills and so forth. So
How many students, are we allowed to know how many students are in
we
each?
pay a flat fee for the
Whether there's
the
3 or
membership.
10?
So for the title boxing membership, it's a flat fee. We can have up to 5 students that can ebb and flow out of our subscription with them. And then the therapeutic riding is for 2 students, I believe. And they at Upreach, they have there's actual writing. They have a training program that incorporates vocational things. That's for a combination of
And those 2 kids take a full-size bus there?
a special education bus. Yeah,
Oh, we don't have little shorter buses, do we?
we have.
We do?
Yeah.
Those for our school.
Devin, the senior class activities, is that alternative activities to senior week, or is that coverage for those students who need it during those activities? $890 miscellaneous.
Need the lessons, writing lessons.
This is for. I think this is for the cost of the paraprofessionals
Oh, that makes sense.
to attend. So if they're going to a play, they pay for the
Yeah.
cost of the.
Page 7. Okay, so now that we're here,
Go ahead. There you go.
no, you can ask the question because it's already been asked, I think 3
The
times.
school,
And seem to be
school
getting it.
psychologist. I'm
seem to
just
be getting a different
questioning
answer every time.
again because should this be under I just am trying to figure out how this is going to work with the budget committee because the school psychologist was the approved position, right?
Correct.
And so now a mental health worker has slid into that position because we couldn't fill it.
School psychologists.
Say that again.
You can't find a school psychologist anywhere.
So we have mental
Right.
health clinician that is providing all of the counseling services that are needed
Okay.
for the students. So the individual is meeting IEP needs. So
That's coming from the salary line for the psychologist.
correct. So
Okay.
right now it's being paid for out of the general fund.
Yep.
It is IEP driven. And so when planning the budget, the thought would be to maintain the mental health clinician position as it's being paid right now.
Because we couldn't find a psychologist.
Because we couldn't find the school psychologist, and then contract for the school psychologist. And the difficulty that I have on whether or not to put forward a mental health clinician on a warrant article is that if it's voted no,
Then-
I can't
It
fill
fits
anything
benefit
with that
services.
name, but I have IEPs that require the counseling services.
I think when it comes to special services and salaries and positions, I think in a certain degree when it relates to student services,
Yeah, we just make,
community doesn't get a say in that. You can't put
Yeah.
that stuff on a warrant article because if it's
It's law.
IEP driven, it's
Yeah.
legally obligated.
Binding
Right.
document.
right.
Right, no, I think.
So what I've moved
I'm
forward in the
trying to figure like where the monies are coming and going from.
Sure. So what I put forward in the budget is maintaining what we put in place for this year.
Mhm.
So it would be a mental health clinician under the school psychologist salary line. So
So
I think
That
that,
takes care of that salary, but you
I
still
just
need a
have to-
psychologist. So
yes,
you're
to do all of the
outsourcing
testing.
that.
Testing,
Yes.
yeah.
So budget wise, I'm assuming it's not as expensive to hire a mental health clinician, including their salaries, than the social worker. So are we
So
then
you
seeing
should
a
see
corresponding decrease in the
You
salary?
should see a decrease in the salary
Okay.
line.
But we still have to pay someone to do the testing.
And that's listed under professional services, yes.
It's a mental health person can't do the testing.
Right. So, but then the question keeps coming up as far as the grant, correct?
That's why we didn't grant fund it, right?
It's grant funded for this year,
Oh.
but not guaranteed for next year. Is that how I
Yes.
understand
So
it to be?
what had happened is in the
Psychologist is?
right now, we're
yes, 'cause
paying the
that's our plan.
contracted school psychologist out of the grant.
The grant.
So we had received a one-time lump sum of money from the reallocation of IDEA funds. And we had 1 year to spend it. So we have until September 30th to spend the additional funds. So when everything panned out the way that it did, contracting for school psych is pretty expensive. So we utilize the grant funds to pay for the school psych services.
So offhand, do you know how much there is in the savings on the other position? Holly?
That's what I'd like to know.
I mean, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just curious as far as the numbers because
So we
we're
know.
up 55,000 here. I'm just curious how much are we down at the other end? So while she's looking for that, we'll just continue on. 3,200. That's it.
Well, you're paying salary for, I mean, it was a salary of a school psych.
Yeah.
And now it's salary of a mental health clinician. So I think there was a difference in step and experience.
No wonder you can't find any psychologists.
But it wasn't that great. And, not that great of a difference.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
All right. Page 8. Nine. 10. $11. So of course, the $64,000 question as far as transportation. Did you,
Where are you seeing? Oh, it's a $25,000 question. Right. I was looking for $64,000.
$64,000 question?
Got it.
So how did you come up with the 25,000 increase?
So we have the contractual increase with our first student runs. So
So these are
that's
true,
the first.
are you separate from the other part of the transportation? So this is a true number.
Yeah, I'd say this one's probably the most accurate of the.
Okay. Just that everyone else's went up like 20, 30%, whatever, and they weren't aware of it. So it wasn't built in.
But these aren't seen as field trips, right? It doesn't come under that. This is,
This is under special ed transportation.
That was a separate part of the contract, correct? Okay. Just want to make sure it's a true number. That's all.
I see.
because it's only up about 10%. And, oh, even less.
That's why I was just curious. But this is all
This is
student
based on-
specific. You know where they're going.
Student specific, I know where they're going. When first student can't do the run, we have limited options in other companies. But we've had luck with one specific company that ends up actually coming in less than, so. But what it doesn't capture is the potential increase
For out of district placements.
for the new placement that I'm looking for.
Right. You have an additional student that you'll have numbers on, you said, like within a week or so.
So for this school psychologist position, did we get any applications and was it the salary that was the issue? Or were we just not able to get applications? Because part of what I'm wondering is, you know, if we had budgeted for a school psychologist that was Or do they have their own step? I don't even know.
They're on the
Like if
teacher
we had
contract.
budgeted a certain amount and there are actually people up there, but
It didn't have anything to do with the salary that we're
Okay.
offering. This is my 8th year with the district, so we've had a couple of times where we looked for school psychs. And in the past, I've had anywhere from 11 to 15 applications. And this time around, it yielded none.
It's a high
that's
needs
really
area
important to
right-
note,
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
Yeah,
Okay.
And last year we had, I don't know how many applicants there were, but the one that we hired was on an alternate plan. So was not even certified yet, was finishing
Oh,
up
I
the
see.
program. We had to
Okay.
engage in all the proper documentation with DOE to make sure the person was able to be hired, put them on a plan, monitor the plan. So, we were lucky to have that person for a year. But
But
so
we were
I'm
also
guessing there
trying to
weren't-
hire at a very difficult time of year too. Could that also be a factor, or you truly think that the supply is not there?
The supply is definitely not there.
Critical shortage.
I mean, if we
There
had
were,
a-
there were other districts that were having,
There's like 4 positions
difficulties.
in the state that are in critical need. Business administrator,
Oh,
superintendent,
Mhm.
school
just because of
psych,
the-
school principal. They're hard positions to.
Huh.
We're in a mental health crisis in New Hampshire, with
Sure,
opioid use, with
sure.
Traumatic experiences for
Okay.
kids. It's, suicide prevention, bullying, all of that stuff requires a school psychologist. So every school needs one.
well, it requires a mental health provider,
Right,
whether
right.
it's school psychologist or whether it's mental health clinician or school social worker. I can't speak
Yeah.
right now. That's the afternoon.
But you need a psychiatrist to do part of that because the others aren't qualified to do so.
Right.
They need to do the
So is that a
testing.
position we still have posted? Or will repost?
So we've contracted with somebody. And in fact,
In a
we
contract.
tell the story. I mean, we grabbed a contract provider who was actually negotiating with several other places to sort of figure out where they were going to come to work.
Hmm.
So, at that point, it's like, let's hurry up and get this buttoned up because otherwise we may have nobody. That was our
Right.
biggest
Yeah,
fear.
and it worked out because I had invited the person in to meet with me, and I invited the 2 school psychologists that we have to participate. And she said that was the kind of selling point for her, was that it was a
Just
team,
buy-in. Yeah.
Oh, the team.
that it was a team conversation,
That's good
and
to
that they
hear.
were, yeah.
That's a smart
So
idea.
She have a space, or he have a space to come into to actually test?
Yes.
Okay.
Devin, if you were recommending, I mean, we're looking at an increase of 104, but just, gut check, I guess. What would you be asking for to really meet the needs based on the developments you saw last week? You're looking for an extra,
Gosh, I would say tuition on the lower end of side, probably around 48 to 50,000, and then
50 for even
transportation, probably another 25 to 30.
so really another 80,000 to just meet the needs that we became aware of this last week. And then if we add that other 80,000, how much wiggle room is there in the budget for another unknown arrival, a family that moves in, or
I only have one anticipated placement listed, and that's under tuition. There's no corresponding funds in transportation.
yeah. So there's
There's not.
wiggle room. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's a new need.
Into,
Well, if she's dipping into the 104 in the capital reserve for this year,
right.
then we need to put a warrant on that. We need to replenish that.
Otherwise, that's going to be your wiggle room. I
That,
mean,
right.
Out of the
right.
way, that's your wiggle room.
That's right. And if we don't replenish it, we're really backed into a corner.
Yeah. All right. Any other
Thank you,
questions for
Devin.
Deb?
Yeah.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Before Devin escapes,
New
Devin,
position.
under new position.
Oh.
So Devin has asked for a special ed facilitator in order to provide some assistance. And I think, see if I can guide Devin through some questions that paint the picture for the board. But how many students are on your caseload? So remember, you're a K-12 director of special ed, and you oversee and manage how many student cases?
So for my out of district caseload, with the additional students I picked up this week, I'm at 12.
So you have 12 students. And if I was a special ed case manager in a school, I would have roughly how many?
Some of our case managers have about 10. And I think the highest right now, maybe about 20.
Okay, so that's somebody who's assigned to be a case manager has
Correct.
10 to 20.
Right.
A special ed director, K-12, is carrying 10,
12.
12, sorry,
And
12.
directing the rest of the department.
Right.
Special services. Yes.
Yep. Can you just talk for a second, because also on your list is homeless liaison.
Mhm.
Are the homeless numbers in Litchfield up, down, neutral? What are you seeing for impacts there?
I don't have that in front of me.
But roughly, I mean, if you
Um,
had, how many last year to how many this year, roughly?
It ebbs and flows, but definitely over the past 2 to 3 years, it has increased. So currently at the start of the year, we have about 8 students that are living in transition, where in years past, I would say from beginning to end of year, not all at the same time, we might have ended around that number. But that's where we're at. So it's,
So you basically cover those kids as well?
I make sure that
Your
if
caseload.
there's a transportation need that it's met, if they need school supplies, clothing or whatnot, we'll see what they need. Make sure that if they're looking for temporary housing, that I'm connecting them with agencies so that they can get some support in finding a home, and then any tutoring services that's needed, working with Mary and the schools to make sure that that's being provided.
And we're required by law to transport those kids from wherever they're located now back to Litchfield.
So whether they go homeless while living here in Litchfield or whether they go homeless living in another town, there's a responsibility
For us to bring
to
them back.
provide the transportation. There is a caveat where districts can cost share the transportation. So most districts that I encounter, if that's a need, they're willing to cost share. So that's helpful.
But that takes coordination.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Right,
That's
so
time.
you
Yeah.
just don't send a bill to another district, right? You have to coordinate, communicate, say on the front end, estimate the costs and so forth. So, I mean, if the homeless caseload has doubled, based on kind of what I heard, it doubles all those requirements to track and follow up on it all too. And that's not unlike what's happening in other districts.
No.
I think all districts are seeing an increase right now in families that are in transition. And I think the federal law is spot on that when everything's falling apart around a child, at least try to keep the school piece consistent, right? So it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't just happen. It happens because Devin is monitoring it.
We also, you know what?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's on there, but it just made me think of that we also had an increase in our English language learner student population. And
2 steps ahead of me is always.
Sorry.
Go ahead, good.
And so for the first time in a while, we have many families that are non-English speaking and students that are non-English speaking. So we do have a position posted for an ELL tutor. I haven't had any applicants. So if anybody's watching this and they're interested, go to the website. But that also correlates to an increase in the interpreter services that are in the budget because we do have a responsibility to make sure that the parents are understanding any permission forms that we're sending home. If special education is at play, that they understand that. So we definitely will be going over budget in that line for this year. So we increased it slightly.
Okay. So do we have an ELL?
She's 75% of the time.
Okay. Would making her full-time help or?
I talked about that with her this year. But really the need right now is not only the pullout services that are needed, but at the same time, like while she's at GMS and we have student need at LMS, let's say, that somebody could be there assisting the
need another
student.
body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think, you got one other angle I want to hit.
Does this need to be a warrant article, special ed facilitator?
Well, so I think that's one of the things that we want to talk about as a board because we
went with special ed facilitator because it's not as costly as a special services coordinator, which has failed twice before.
Right.
So a special ed facilitator would only be able to assist with the special education realm of things, where a special services coordinator could assist with.
Paperwork
the
and
gamut.
meetings and scheduling.
Evaluations, that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay. So this is a boots on the ground position.
Not an
Uh-huh.
LEA person. That
They
could,
could, the special ed facilitator could
Could be.
LEA.
that would be
And by LEA, you mean,
Oh, sorry.
being
Any
meeting.
special education meeting that we have to have an LEA representative, which is
Usually a
local
vice
education
principal.
agency. Yes.
Yeah, that
so
would
Or
somebody who
myself or
represents
principal.
the school district and
Yes.
can bind the district with,
Financial
every
obligations.
single meeting, Tara.
Yep.
Could they go?
not affiliated with the association, right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I-
This is a part-time position?
Do it again.
I don't, what did you put in for?
Holly, how did we budget? I'm not sure how that
$45,000
number is.
sounds like
There's no benefits, that's why
There's
I'm
no
asking.
health benefits.
Part-time.
Part-time.
So it was, so our thought was, one thought is that if you have somebody who is maybe retired from special services that doesn't want to work full-time, but wants to pick up some hours and can just sort of pick up these tasks a little bit more. Because I hope the theme you're picking up on is this is pretty complicated and diverse stuff.
Mhm.
And so you have to have somebody who has some experience in all these areas that can sort of jump into that.
Mm.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, can you just talk for a second about truancy and attendance issues in schools? Are you seeing an uptick
Oh, you're
in
that too.
students who are
Yes,
struggling
She's our
with school?
truant officer.
That's
Yes,
right.
you swore me in last year as
I
the
remember.
district's truancy officer. Yes, so that is taking a lot of time and attention, but I think it's for the good. I think that that cracking down and addressing the concerns earlier can lead to more success for our students as they progress through middle school and high school. So that is ultimately the goal of being able to enforce our policy that's been at play. So we started last year. We established a group. It was the assistant principals from each of the schools, myself and Mike, looking at our policy, looking at the school's procedures, and making sure that they aligned to the policy. And so it's been a very busy beginning of the school year, but there's an intervention process that's clearly laid out in the policy that we have for the district. And so it's just making sure that all of those steps are being adhered to. So there's letters being sent home when a student misses 6 half days, so 3 full days of school. There's a letter that goes home and a meeting with the building administration. And then when a student gets to 10 half days of unexcused absences, this is all around unexcused absences, there's another meeting that the truancy officer attends with the building admin, the parents, and so forth, and comes up with a plan to address it. If it doesn't improve, then I do a home visit. Yeah, it's been good.
And by October 15th, we've already hit home visit status with families, right?
Yes.
So
Gosh.
it's just
2
important,
So
again,
far.
that the board understand that with the policy and the monitoring that goes with it, there's an awful lot. So here's a position. And honestly, it's an effort to make sure that we're on top of all of these moving parts, that we're not losing track of something, and to give some pressure release to Devin,
Yeah.
because she is being asked to do an awful lot in this.
And you have been keeping your head above water for years. I mean,
And smiling her way through it. I'll say.
exactly.
So
Is- go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, it's part-time, but how many hours are we looking at per week?
Holly, do you know how you came up with the salary for that? Was it 20 hours a week?
If it's part-time, it's only the school year, correct?
There might be
Seems like a
some.
lot.
So I
Might
can
be
only
some
speak to, so I submitted an activity to the DOE with the remaining grant funds that we have to get this started for part-time. So what I submitted to the DOE was for 20 hours a week. And because the grant goes till September 30th, I calculated in weeks to at least get through the extended school year programming that is really up and running 4 weeks in July. Usually goes a day or 2 into August. It won't be 20 hours a week in the summer, but the programming is 4 days a week for 3 hours. So really having somebody designated to the supervision of the extended school year programming.
Is 20 hours a week enough?
No, but it's better than what we have right now.
So it is a year-round position. Is that what you're saying?
Usually special ed facilitator positions are about 200 days. So it covers a little bit into the summer, but not the whole summer.
Excellent. Anything else? Thank you.
Right, thanks.
I will point out that is the end of the new position list as we bring food service up next, I believe.
We do.
Did you do lunch?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was wraps.
What?
Yeah.
Pass these around.
No, thank you. Did you hold lunch?
Yeah.
She did. Nice. I think I got 2 of them.
No,
Tell. No, I guess I got one.
Bye.
memo, right?
The memo about the hole punching.
Oh, yeah.
I think the only Lawrence would say is I'm not gonna lose any money.
Good.
Good.
Okay, so obviously one of my focuses last year was to increase the participation, and I think it's safe to say I was pretty successful in doing that. Every school is boasting well over, well, the 2 upper schools are boasting over 50% participation, which is fantastic. And even though GMS dropped, they're still over 40%, which is really good. So, and they only dropped a few percentage points anyway. Last year. And I think that was the implementation of the all-day kindergarten and the large first grade class. So literally half their school was new. So the focus on this year, we're putting it more toward food quality and efficiency of service. We're also obviously looking at the trying to decrease the debt that has been built up over the past few years and getting that paid off and having our staff look into a more proactive role in that aspect. But overall, we've brought in some new vendors. We're bringing in a new beverage vendor, which you guys saw at lunch today with some of the samples that they provided for us. And we've brought in new pizza vendors, better quality products for our students. We're making more things in-house. And overall, we're looking at a decrease overall from last year's budget, which is pretty awesome. So one of the things that I proposed is, I know last year I was really kind of gung-ho about Mosaic, that software program. I'm actually looking to focus on the revenues side because it wasn't where we wanted it to be. We've decided to forego that spending this year, but we're looking to do Meals Plus with an upgrade of all of our register equipment at all school levels. And that includes pin pads, that includes computers, everything. So and it's a little more, with this whole past year of learning how everything kind of works, it's a little more user friendly for some of my staff that are maybe not so technologically inclined. It's a lot cleaner than Mosaic, and it still provides all of the same benefits that Mosaic would have provided. So it's kind of a better option, I think, for the district and for my staff to use. And then one of the other things that we've noticed during this was supplies were up, but it was we had to buy a lot of products just to do the changes that we wanted to do. Things like the coffee shop needed supplies, the deli needed supplies. We bought some new equipment at the elementary school and things. Yeah.
Page 1. So with the conversion going to Meals Plus, is that a one-time charge? Is there like software that goes behind it like every year?
Yeah, there will be an annual charge after but the large number there, the 20,000 is mostly equipment. And then I think it's like 3,000 a year, I'd want to say.
And what are you paying now?
Do you know what we're paying now for NutriKids?
I can look it up.
Please.
move on while I'm just curious if it's like roughly the same, it's just gonna balance out. It's just right now you're paying up front as far as for the equipment.
Is that Heartland?
That's Heartland.
So does that also change the parent side of things? My School Bucks, would that then
Yeah,
change?
it will be changing. Meals Plus has their own.
We haven't
Want
talked
to
to
be
Jay.
able to
We haven't talked to Jay
export
about
what
that
they're
yet.
buying.
Meals Plus has their own
Okay.
version of My School Bucks, which is K-12 Payment Center, and it's all hosted through that.
And is it another service that you have to pay a service fee for,
I don't believe so.
give money?
I believe it's in the price.
You mean the
with-
parents?
Oh, sorry, the parents. I don't know that offhand. I can look into it.
It's a
Probably.
convenience fee.
I would imagine so. It's pretty standard.
More convenient to give a check
No,
to
it
my
isn't.
kid and send it in.
Yes.
I've started
You
doing.
met my
I've started
kids?
doing a
Michael.
check route this year.
Michael will agree with Brian on that.
I'm not gonna
But
pay
for
$3 to
$2.50
give money. It's like going to the mall to buy a gift card. It's like ridiculous.
It wouldn't be so that bad if there wasn't an upper limit on how much you could prepay.
Right, exactly.
Like if I could
120,
pay
yeah, seems low.
$300 for the whole year, or
Yeah.
however long
True.
it takes you.
How much can
Tyra,
you do?
$300 for the year? Will that cover the boys?
Well, no,
No.
but I mean,
No.
it's
That's a
120.
week, right?
Doesn't
It's
even cover one
120
of
right
them.
now, which is about.
Shit.
I've looked at this.
But that's the only way I know when it runs low. It has to have. I didn't know my kids were out of. I like the reminders. That's worth it to me alone. Getting the
Yeah,
reminders
I like that too.
below $10.
Did you
Anyway,
find it, Corey?
I'm looking.
All right, we'll just keep going.
can we do other? So, like, I really liked having the Chromebook insurance,
Mhm.
being able to pay through My School Bucks.
Yes,
If we could
that was
do
nice.
like all the things through that same problem, same
You're
program,
paying a service fee every time you do that.
Not on the.
not on the Chromebook
Yeah, it was
insurance.
built in.
We
Oh,
did,
it's built in.
Remember, we were told that.
Oh,
but
that's right.
you know, with class,
It just doesn't look that way. It's like $20, no service fee.
It's something to look into
Yeah.
regarding
Well,
the
it's somewhere
K-12
on-
Payment Center.
It's somewhere on Infinite Campus that shows all the fees that we pay.
Squared.
Yeah.
We're paying about $1,700 a year.
So it's gonna cost
So
us.
it'd be
Gone
more.
up consistently.
So okay.
So what benefits?
That's just based on, I don't know the exact number, but that was just an estimate that I was given. So
So you said about 300 a year,
1,000.
3,000 a year.
And right now,
Okay.
I'm
I
paying
think-
17.
Okay.
It sounds like it provides more.
Sorry.
It provides more.
Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, than what NutriKids is currently providing, which is not a lot. So
Okay.
Page 2. Page 3. So on supplies, you just mentioned supplies, but I don't know if this fall. We're up $1,500 in supplies.
Mhm.
which
So
is-
a lot of that is all of my supplies. That's paper products and any small wares, anything of that variety. So with our staff situations over the last year, we were quite understaffed for a lot of it. We used a lot more paper products than we typically would have if we were fully staffed. So I think that's what drove that number up, because those biodegradable trays are like $80 a case. And that's what we use. So I think that drove that quite high over the last
So-
year or so.
So why isn't it going down then? If now you're staffed and you're not going to use many supplies yet.
We're still understaffed. And we're, especially at middle school, we're having a bit of an issue there. But
So we use the biodegradable trays across the board
all three schools,
because we're understaffed and we don't have staff to wash dishes.
basically. Mostly at middle
Ah.
school is where they are and where they had the highest participation last year, and they had quite a bit of the staffing concerns.
Yeah.
They did end up using a lot of those. High school was probably next for that, but we're working to move more toward the washable trays, even if we're understaffed, to just kind of get that down a little bit more. But that includes, oven mitts, scoops, sheet pans, anything that they may need. And over the course of last year, it became apparent with certain things we wanted to do, we need certain pieces of equipment and we either don't have it or it's incredibly old. So
Page 4.
I have a question about laundry, just
Yeah.
because I do that. It's like how I spend half of my days.
Mhm.
do you contract that out? How does that,
Yeah, we have a company that comes and picks it up.
just curious.
Yeah.
Because that would be really nice.
Yeah.
Don't have any other questions? Thank you very much.
Cool.
Next is technology.
Oops, sorry.
What's that?
Okay, go.
He's lost.
She looking right?
I don't know.
What's you?
It's Carl's birthday.
You
Made
haven't
my
eaten that
hat.
thing yet, huh?
Huh?
You haven't eaten that yet, huh?
It's too soon. Carl's, it's Carl's
I heard
gotcha
him
day.
say community
So
something.
Laura made him a hat.
Well, maybe.
Very tolerant bunny.
Really is. Thank you for hole punching.
You're welcome. All right. So last year, our IT budget, we did a pretty good job of trying to keep that down. This is up just a little bit more than last year. The increase pretty much stems from the fact that the incoming freshmen originally came up with their Chromebooks this year. But now in this new budget, the fifth graders and incoming freshmen both are going to be receiving Chromebooks for their tenure at each of the schools. So instead of just one grade level worth of Chromebooks being purchased, it's 2 grade levels.
Okay, so I have that highlighted within the budget, but can you explain why incoming freshmen are going to get them where they already have one? They've only had for 2 years.
Right. So we started the one-to-one pilot at LMS. So, and they only had the Chromebook for half the year. So, also in order for them to do their online summer classes as well, we just made the decision to have them bring that up to 9th grade.
Yeah.
Because they only had a few months on that machine. So here's another new machine, and then having to purchase that for them.
Okay, that's not answering my question. Our incoming freshman class, which is 8th grade right now,
Right.
you're budgeting to get them all new Chromebooks.
Correct.
What's wrong with the Chromebooks they have that they've had for a year and a half?
There's a life cycle on those Chromebooks. So Google will only support those for so long. And what we really want to do is get in a cycle where 5th grade gets them for their tenure at the middle school. And then the freshmen will get it for their tenure at the high school instead of swapping them out, in the middle.
Okay.
So
the existing 8th grade Chromebooks, what's going to happen to those?
what we've been doing is we've been bringing that technology down to the elementary school, and the ones that aren't necessarily viable, if they're beat up pretty bad, we've been using those for parts for repairs.
Okay. But I'm only guessing. I mean, you see them each year.
Mhm.
I would think that the incoming freshmen's Chromebooks are in really good shape. They're only like 2 years old.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Yep. There definitely some that
So-
are pretty rough, but
So it's probably a lot you're going to be salvaging that would be going down towards the younger classes.
correct. Yep.
You met this 8th grade group?
What's the lifespan of the computer? So going forward,
I said, have you met
somebody
this
who
8th
gets
grade
it in
group?
5th grade, will they have that
Well,
same
my son's got
Chromebook
7th grade,
through senior year, or do they get a replacement?
Right. So if they're 5th grade, the plan would be to replenish that when they become a 9th grader. So when they transition to the high school.
So this is like establishing a cycle right now.
Correct.
So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th get the same Chromebook, and then they get a new
When
one.
they graduate to a new Chromebook.
9,
Correct.
10. So it's like 4-year cycle. is that what you're
Correct. For the
saying?
Chromebooks.
Are they not usable after 4 years? Do they get in that recycled program that you're talking about?
The ones that are viable right now, we haven't gone through a full 4 years yet, but we have been, like the seniors, we recycled down to the elementary school what we could. There's a good amount this year.
For the senior class right now, they're the originals, correct?
Correct. There's still, the pilot, the original pilot. So we have about 40 students that have the original.
And have you looked into like how their Chromebooks are holding up?
They'll come in from time to time. There's not a ton of issues, but you'll see that, the edges are cracked or broken and,
The functionality, if they're holding up as far as.
Yep, they're holding up. They're fine. The other big thing is Google will support security updates up to a certain year for each device.
Yeah.
So typically that's 5 years. So after that, if we recycle them any further than that, it might only be for a year or two, and we'll swap them out as needed.
So
The ones that are moving down to GMS, are those going for classroom use typically now at this point, or are they still where are we with
Sure.
devices at
This
GMS?
year, what we ended up doing was at the 4th grade level, doing half carts in each of the 4th grade, so that when they did lessons, a lot of times it's group work when they do lessons on the Chromebooks, and then if they did need a whole class, there would be a teacher that
So
would
that's
allow
about
them to
15
use. I think it was 13. So
cart. Okay.
yep. And then other than that, each grade has their own cart. And then we were also able to give some Chromebooks to the library, to PE, to some of the other programs as well. Title I has some Chromebooks. So there's a lot down there.
Okay. So as we continue to recycle,
So,
that'll increase.
Correct.
and what do you plan to target the ones that will go down there next year?
Right now, there's going to be a couple of models that are going to be out of that 5-year cycle. So we would end up replacing those with the senior Chromebooks. And then eventually, when we hit that cycle, there might not be as many that we'll be able to recycle going down because they're going to probably be pretty beat up for 4 years.
We're just so you know, we're in our first 4-year cycle, Ryan, and out of 100, you'll probably be lucky to send 10 or 12 down that are fully functioning at that point. They're pretty
I
beat up
agree with
after-
that
So-
number.
We talked once as far as like offering to sell them to the students.
Sure.
It would be more beneficial to say, listen, hey, you want to keep your Chromebook $25 or $50?
We could definitely do that. They would probably, the fair market value on those would probably be around that $25, $30 range.
Yeah.
At that time. So we could do that.
I'm just wondering, financially, would we be better off selling to them for $30 than moving whatever handful down?
We could, we could recall some of that revenue and put it into whatever
New purchases.
whatever was decided, new purchases. I know some of the seniors asked for that last year and said, unfortunately, right now the plans to recycle them, but there will definitely most likely be people that want to do that.
Especially now that we're getting onto a cycle, I would think that, every time the senior class comes up, it's like, hey, you want to buy a book for $30? And say everybody wants it. I don't know.
No, I think that's a good idea. We should look into that. A couple of the budget drivers, other than the 5th and 9th grade Chromebook 1-to-1, is also the 5-year replacement plan. It was projected to be just under 108,000, but we were able to get that number down to 87,700. Through the 5-year plan, we've been able to cut out a lot of stuff, and there's been some things that we found that weren't really being used. So we were able to cut back a lot of the things that were in that original plan when I first started here in Litchfield. So this 5-year replacement plan is pretty much replacing 2 computer labs at CHS and then the wireless upgrade to upgrade the wireless infrastructure through the district. Every teacher now has a laptop, and they're well within the 5-year cycle, so we don't have any really other replacements for that.
Dude, I didn't ask before. The 10 additional Chromebooks per grade, do those stay with the grade as they go forward, or do those get reassigned at the end of the year?
Typically, they'll stay with the grade because we find that every year it's going to be that model, and then the next year when we purchase, there'll be a different model. So when we end up getting a new student at LMS, the 5th grade, I think we ended up having to purchase even more than the extras because we had a lot of kids. I want to say it was 15 or more kids. And then so if now that group is in 6th or 7th grade, we can give them the exact same Chromebook that everybody else has. A couple of the increases, you'll see the big one is 1,028,400, 531, and 532 for a combined 65,971. It's not necessarily an increase; it's just a movement of funds. And I know that we've talked about this probably 2 or 3 times before. But what we're trying to do is now that the infrastructure's been restructured, everything's pretty much at a district level. And sometimes the telephone bills aren't exact everywhere. So at the end of the year, Ann has to move some money here, some money there. So keeping it at a district level and keeping it all in one, just a little bit cleaner, gives us an easier picture to see this is exactly how much we spend on telephone and data connections. There's also an increase of $9,000 in the software line. When we first started the one-to-one program, we were able to take advantage of some software licensing, and there's some special promotions, and we were buying a lot of Chromebooks at the time. And one of the softwares that we were able to get bundled for a little bit was GoGuardian. That's the classroom management software that the teachers can use to help, keep kids on track with their Chromebooks and the technology use. So unfortunately, we can't leverage that anymore. So that's the actual cost going forward for that software. There's also and then there's also that increase, the $3,750, like we mentioned before, that's going to be to outfit the 9th graders. One thing in here that I didn't mention that is probably important to mention is there is a new software line, a new software under the 28,446 line that you'll see there. It says SIM tool, and that's coming in at 17,820. And what is that, right? That's a big number. So with security and the House bill and everything like that, one of the things is logging. We're mandated to log everything that's going on in the back end and users and everything like that. A SIM tool, which is short for Security Information and Event Management. What it'll do is we point all of our logs to this tool. So firewall, wireless, logins, failed logins. It also does like if there's software that's vulnerable, so people can go and compromise and everything. It will collect all of that stuff instead of me or Brendan looking through these logs of line logs like this and trying to figure things out. It takes a long time. It doesn't really make sense. You're going to miss a lot of stuff, and in reality, we're not going to get through all that stuff. So this will collect all of that, and it'll basically do the job of 2 people for shorter money, and we can log it. We'll have compliance and everything like that.
Just before you go a little further, can you just expound a little bit on the 5-year replacement plan, what that is?
Sure. So we established a revolving plan, a technology replacement plan, and that's for the computers. It doesn't have the one-to-one or anything in it, but it's like the computers. So teachers, computer labs. It also has to do with big infrastructure projects like high-speed hard drives that the servers use. It's called the SAN, so everything can work. There are VMware infrastructure, server infrastructure, big items, so that when we budget, it's not like, oh, here's $200,000 because we need this now. Everything's in a nice, clean cycle that can be predicted.
Yeah. And this is for all 3 schools.
Yep, for all 3 schools, the whole entire district.
And how were you able to bring that down? Is it just this year it's down, or do you just foresee that maybe it was over budgeted or?
Yeah, so the a lot of it had to do with when I started when I first came in, just to kind of make sense of everything. There was a lot of stuff in the inventory that was duplicated. So some of the numbers were definitely skewed at first, but now a lot of that's been cleaned up. That was cleaned up like on the third cycle of this. But the other thing too is we didn't have the one-to-one when we first started it. Full one-to-one. So with that, we've been able to remove a couple of labs. We've been able to remove some of the hardware. And then when we ended up doing the fiber upgrade as well this summer, the connectivity between buildings, we were able to get rid of a ton of really expensive server equipment and everything like that too. So just centralizing it and making things just run more simple and clean and efficient.
So going forward, your projected numbers will probably continue being lower than what was projected.
No, I would say, especially after this first 5 year, then it's going to be really accurate because
No, that's what I'm saying. So like, let's say we're in what year are we in right now with the 5 year plan?
this would be the 4th year.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like next year, do you expect it to go down again? Or is this?
Yeah, I would think that it'll go down a little bit, and then next year it's going to probably go down just a little bit,
And then, it'll just
and then
balance.
it should be pretty even and level, unless we have some other initiative that we plan on doing.
I'm sure we'll find one, right?
Yeah.
All right. So page 1.
I just have one question. Just it's $1,000 under 650 software class creator for classroom rostering.
Yeah.
Is that
So
literally like seating charts.
what it is before all of the front office would put they would roster on Post-it notes and index cards, and then sometimes there's certain things about kid
Oh,
know,
okay. That's
there's
the
some kids that
GMS.
work better in different environments. So this is how they could be like, this student would be, might thrive better with this teacher. This student might do better with this teacher. And everything was very manual and done by hand.
And our grading program doesn't offer that as part of it.
Infinite Campus.
That's the only reason I
Yeah.
really see it.
No, I remember
included
that
in
being
headline.
something that Scott ordered so that it can be streamlined
Okay.
across the whole school.
That's my only question. I just
Right. Yeah. At the
I've always
elementary
seen it
level, it's a
included
little
in-
bit, yeah, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
Just the way that it's structured. There was still a lot of manual hands-on work that was needed with Infinite Campus.
and not to be a pain in the neck. I was just looking at 738 under GMS and LMS.
Mhm.
Where we're 1-to-1 at LMS, would it make sense to do like a 3-in-1 to get the replacements done quicker where there's 1-to-1 technology, or is that, I know there's a plan for everything. Just to ask, if we're 1-to-1 and there's more interaction, would it be more beneficial getting more smartboard upgrades done quicker at LMS? I don't,
Is that the last line on that?
yeah, the
page
738, we have replacing 2 smartboards at GMS and 2 smartboards at LMS. Just wondering if we're
Yeah.
1-to-1 at
Yeah, and
LMS.
in a lot of the smart boards that we put in, there's some that have been aging that have been breaking. They're so old that we can't get
Can't
parts.
update them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been putting the Epson.
And that was my,
Yeah.
not a problem with the numbers, just if we're 1-to-1 at LMS.
Do we need them as much?
Well, we might need them more at
Oh,
LMS
I
so they
see.
could
I
interact
see what
more,
you're saying.
is what I'm saying. I was just throwing that out, that there's a plan, but.
to move maybe at GMS
Like do
one and then
four.
add.
And I'm just
Yeah.
throwing it out there, if there was you're in schools too, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
if it would be more beneficial, the technology end of it.
See what?
What's that?
Is the police open?
I don't think they're open on weekends.
No, they're not open on the weekend, the dispatcher.
There's a non-emergency number that you could call, but
What do you call?
Well, in other words, there's no, that's just the number?
no physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no office
Dispatcher.
person here on the weekend.
Okay.
Call Hillsborough County.
Ghostbusters. Page 2. Page 3. So under software, 650. We have a $9,000 increase. What's driving that?
Correct, and that's the Go
Go
Guardian classroom management.
Now, you can't use Land School because the computers are mobile, right?
Land School does have a similar tool. The one nice thing that Go Guardian has that at last time I checked, the Land School one did not have was they have at-risk features, so it'll flag specific things that you can help
Cookie
students.
clicker?
I wish it was cookie clicker. Yes. Good old cookie clicker last year. But Go Guardian has a lot more features than the
Okay.
Lamb School one has.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just curious.
but they do have a mobile product as well.
It's because we see it every year, but you just see more desktops being purchased, like doing 58 of them at CHS.
Yeah, and,
Desktops?
yeah, and those are for for the computer lab. So they got special software, so like CAD and everything. So where there's a lot more stuff that's cloud based that's coming out. So hopefully eventually we can do a lot more on the Chromebooks for a lot of that stuff. And then the other thing too is a lot of the curriculum is based around these programs. So, and a lot of those programs don't necessarily have a big cloud feature a part of them. So we do have that. So Adobe Creative Cloud, if they're going to run some CAD programs, things like that.
So where are the computer labs? I know that they're desktops in the graphic design.
Yeah, so
Right.
room 159 at the high school on the first floor.
Oh, Barry's room,
And then there's room 157.
McDonough's room.
That's room 222. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the three big labs.
So welcome back, Hotter.
And
Too
yeah.
old.
And then in 222 they have special software too for programming. They do programming up there that right now on the Chromebooks. But eventually, I bet a lot of that stuff will come around.
Does it make sense to do one lab each year versus two? It's quite the expense.
Right.
Since there are 3 rooms.
Right, but he's already got a technology plan, 5-year plan.
Yeah. So what I looked at when I created the plan was basically grab serial numbers off of them. One was this created, one was this created. We had machines that were like 9 years old and some that were 8 when it first started.
Yeah.
So putting that together and trying to level the playing
Equalize
field.
it.
So it's like, oh, these are a little bit older and we're having more issues in this one lab. So we'll do this one before we do the other 2. So that's kind of how I just did it. I think before they did school by school, and the numbers just kind of depending on how much technology was in there is up and down.
Yeah, the notes need to be corrected.
Jason, can you just look at page 3, the 446 software line?
Correct.
So the notes don't add up to the dollar amount. Can you just make sure that Wish is right, the notes or the 16.5?
The notes. So $12,500 for Office for the yearly Office and server licenses, $4,000 for Creative Cloud, and then $17,820 for the SIM tool. Those are the correct numbers.
You didn't hear the update.
4, 3, that's 30,
So what should that be?
34.
12,000 plus 4,000 plus 17.
20.
For 34,320.
Yeah, so that should probably be that 17,820. That should be an increase on that one.
So 34,320 is,
That's right. That was in my head, yeah.
yeah.
Because
no,
that
that's what
wasn't
I added.
substituting anything.
Yep.
That's brand new.
Okay, that's a good catch, Michelle. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome. So we have to add 17,820 to the bottom line.
I missed it. Why did that double or did that not double?
We added in the 17,000. That's for
Okay.
the
That
cybersecurity
came from the other.
Correct.
line.
state
Yep.
mandate.
Oh, I see.
I just updated it in the budget system, so it will come through the next printout.
So the bottom line, the actual increase is 22,258. I don't know if my math right.
Page 4.
Oh, since we just mentioned that security update, I forget, and she's gone. What were we going to ask him about that we saw 3 or 4 times in one of those schools? Remember Mary was going to ask him?
Yes, those programs.
Linda?
Linda?
Yeah.
Good old Linda.
Gail.
Yeah, so the last time I looked, this was last year, Linda came up and
Linda. She's always
Love
causing
talking about
problems.
Linda.
so it's like a library resource website, but they ended up getting bought out by LinkedIn. And that's where the problem kind of starts. So LinkedIn, at the time you had to create a LinkedIn account, which means that we would have a school issued school branded email account for a social media page. And that means that these kids could have, anybody could access them. And that's before we even get into the privacy policy for LinkedIn. So it was kind of like, yeah, like they might have used it before, but as things change, it's kind of like this is kind of a scary thing.
So we kicked Linda out
Correct.
So there was,
to the
I
curb.
think we saw it in 3 spots.
It wasn't just Linda though, it was another one you were asking
Well,
about.
no, it
too.
was Linda
was
in
the big
3
one.
spots, I
Yeah.
believe, for, I think a total of
Each school had
2,700.
Linda.
Does that mean another program will take those budget lines or will those disappear?
I can't answer that, but Linda's kind of, as far as, looking at the kids' safety and privacy and stuff, we
Yeah,
probably
no,
want
that's
to
fine.
look elsewhere. Yeah. So, and my understanding is that it's there's like training and everything that the kids can do through that. Some resources
Okay.
for that.
Page 4. Five. And then 6. So when we're looking at the total numbers, technology services, and then it goes general fund. What's added to technology services make the general fund so the number goes up? Well, if you look at technology services, it's supposedly budgeted $26,000 down.
You have 2 different functions,
Okay.
2225 and 2840. So the the technology services is 2840, total general fund puts the 2 functions together.
What's the other one?
2225 is computer education, I believe.
Yeah. So it's
Oh,
instruction
okay.
and it's just
And
tech
services.
services.
Got it.
22.
So you're
The
looking
actual-
at the 2840 line.
Right.
If you
The actual dollar amount under general fund will actually be up 22,438.
here's the other amount
258,
that would
that's what I
add to
got.
get that.
22,000.
Total
The 22,
technology
25 back
budget
on
is
page
only
2.
up without.
So why doesn't it just say
Well,
20?
but we just
25?
retired.
You probably
What
should.
18,000?
It'd be a lot cleaner.
From the sim tool.
Account number 446.
Sums it
Oh, yeah,
here,
yeah,
like
yeah.
takes everything in
Yep.
So it'll be
You're right.
2225. So this is actually a sum line right there. And then that plus
Forgot.
that is giving you the
So I
general
make
fund.
1 or 2 suggestions.
I probably
Either
didn't
like
click enough
stop
tape
the
button.
program right there and like that's one total, then you go to the
Done it
next
a million
total.
times.
Or just change this thing because it's in there more than once like that too, right?
I'm sure that every time.
Yeah.
And I still
it's split
forget.
across
Food service
functions.
operation and food service fund.
Exactly.
Yeah, and each one of them.
That's the way the report was set up by the expert.
And you get transportation and then you get, all right.
And Jason had no personnel requests.
But we do have a question for you that came up earlier that maybe you can help us with. And that's in the Learning Commons,
Mhm.
especially at GMS as far as book checkout.
Sure.
Because right now we're limiting like who can have access to getting on.
Mhm.
And because of that, then the librarian has to be the person doing the book checkout. So we're just wondering like, how can we get around that? And is it possible to get like a hand scanner, away from the computer? So you don't have access to that, but you can just still scan.
Kiosk.
Yep. So
Something.
No, so we actually already have built something in the back end. We just in the middle of testing it before we put it out there where the students can use their lunch number, and that would be the only thing that they would need to know. And a volunteer could easily put that in, and it would automatically check the book out for them. They can complete it.
Oh.
Did the librarians know about this?
We told them that we're working on something.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but where does the volunteer type the number in?
It'll be like a kiosk. So
And the-
yeah.
Because
So
every book has a
Yeah.
Right.
barcode inside,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what it will be, it would be a Chrome device that we force this web page at, and then with a hand scanner, it'll be put in your lunch
Don't have
code.
to worry about them like being access
Right.
to the computer or anything else.
Right, exactly. It's just we're still in we pretty much finished doing it, but it's just that testing and everything. to get it in.
So it should be rolling out pretty soon.
Yeah, probably I would say within the next couple of weeks, as long as everything goes well.
It's okay.
So-
All that
So
conversation for now.
students
That's
might
great.
actually be able to do it themselves then.
That's what it
Exactly.
sounds like.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, the volunteer makes sure that
He's
the
working
book
on
is getting charged to the right kiddo, right? So
If they forget, maybe if they don't know their lunch.
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Most of them do by the time they're.
So it gives them access to like do that function.
then kids can, they'll love
Beautiful.
it.
For solving a
Beautiful.
problem.
That was
Yeah.
fast.
Glad I asked that question. All right.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank
Have
you.
a safe trip back.
Thank you.
So now we go to SAU and school board.
You had a wedding this weekend too.
You did.
Yeah. So kind of preparing for.
4:30 wedding on a Friday night's not fun. That's what time the wedding was last night. I still managed to get in a half day of work though, and drive
Wow.
to Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Stacy.
Have a good weekend.
All right, so next up is the SAU budget, and Barbara and I sat down and reviewed what we've been doing, and you can see that we're coming in pretty much level funded. We're down by $330. Be happy to take any questions you might have on it.
The only one, I mean,
Don't say
this is the
toner.
first thing budget
Don't
committee.
say toner.
Nope, I'm gonna
Legal
say
fees?
conferences.
Oh,
Oh, and mileage reimbursement.
I don't get reimbursed for mileage.
Any of
Where is this?
the 580 travel.
Yep, 580. So I went to the only conference I went to was the superintendent's conference last year.
Wait, are
Which-
we in school? Where are we?
SAU.
SAU.
I was looking at school board.
That's all right. We'll wait for you.
We have
The
the one
next one.
pager. The one pager here.
Quiet you.
Sorry.
So if you
Sorry.
look, like in 18, there was only $51 spent out of that line.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the conference is far more expensive than that. So
The conference doesn't get me as much as the mileage.
is that an increase over the past though? I didn't bring my sheet, my
Yeah.
worksheet.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. The total,
Just airline tickets,
I didn't-
mileage.
I didn't put in
$35.
for any mileage. The only mileage was, although, wait a second, this is the SAU, right? So this is, it would cover,
it's a
3,500.
combination of more than that. So I don't know.
yeah,
if
it's not just me. I got to get my head out of this. Michelle, do you have
Oh,
mileage
there it is. Holy
reimbursement?
moly.
for-
Do I
Yeah.
have, for myself, you mean?
Yeah.
I never use it though.
I think this is it, but I think I don't use,
Is Devon's out of there?
I never
Devon's
use
out
it.
of
I
there.
don't bother.
She's out of 2332, I think.
I think she has her own.
Yeah, she has her own line.
I think this would cover me, Barbara,
Michelle.
Michelle.
It's a lot of mileage.
It's a lot of money.
$1,600 was used last year, actual.
How much?
1644 between conferences and mileage.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think most of that was the superintendent's conference. I did
Oh,
put in
I
for the
see.
mileage to drive to,
California?
Arizona.
yeah, the Grand Canyon. No, it was, where the heck were we? Bretton Woods. We went to Bretton
That
Woods.
was
So it's
not
it's not that much.
$3,500.
It's not that much. That's why it's definitely the conference and the mileage combined.
I think-
Yeah, but if he
I think
goes
it
to, if he goes to superintendent's meetings and things like that are
How much
in
do
or
I
out of
pay you a
district, you
mile?
get
$100?
mileage.
I mean,
No, you get the pay. It adds up.
But honestly, like the superintendent's meetings are in Concord, so I go to those on my way to work. I don't come to work and go to them.
No, you don't
So-
charge for it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you're entitled to
So
it. but
Can
you
we just
don't.
get a breakdown or
We
clarification on
certainly
that?
will. Yep.
It just jumped out at me. It's like,
Another, the 1875
Yeah.
increase, yeah.
I work
Is this
part-time and
mileage
be
or
around.
conferences that you want clarification
Well,
on?
we'll do
I know,
both because
yeah.
they're both in the same line. I'm not sure. I don't think there was much in mileage. I think most of it's conferences.
so it's possible that what's in mileage should be in conferences.
It's
Yes.
possible. It may have gotten put in.
That makes more sense.
But I'm not a person that likes to go to conferences, to be honest. I do more of the local networking piece. I think you learn more.
That does equal up to 5,750.
What does?
Well, I know what equals that, but that's.
Oh,
not my
the
question.
two.
Oh boy, we're getting punchy now.
Yeah.
Let's stir up some stuff so we can get some audience
No,
out
I'm
there.
Just wait, Holly.
All right, let's go to the school board budget now and see what you guys are asking for. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's funny.
was the first budget without toner.
Oh.
Well, all right, so should
Can I just
we,
tell you, I
We
got
don't
rid
use
of the
our-
printer on my desk
Mm-hmm.
because I don't need a printer on my desk.
Look at all the toner you're gonna save us.
I did. Saved you a ton of toner.
What do you print out on the printer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't use mine anymore either.
So now we're on school board.
It's in there, but
Did you do this, Brian?
So I think, Michelle, you put this,
Not me.
Barbara must put this together.
So page one is pretty much nothing, and page two is, there's
well,
only one.
hold on, page
What's the
one, if you only
314?
spent 1644 on the travel line, do you think you're gonna need 5750?
Oh, we're back on.
They're
Should
looking-
we-
they're
We're
looking
looking at
into
that.
that.
We're-
You're
in the
looking into
school
that,
board?
okay.
We in the
I'm
school
gonna get a
board?
breakdown of that, and if we have to make an adjustment.
We're like 3 minutes
Okay.
behind on that side of the table.
No, I'll get an answer
I
on
just
that.
need a recap sometimes.
Okay.
Okay.
On the school board side,
Page one. Nothing. Page two, legal.
Well, what went up? $314. Printing and binding.
so we put the legal up 10,000. If you look at it, it really fluctuates, and a lot of it's driven by collective bargaining years. So,
And that's why I was gonna ask, is that enough?
I don't know.
this
Right, I know
Yeah,
that.
right.
this past year we spent 66.7.
You're looking
And
at the
keep in mind
potential.
that we had 2 collective bargaining agreements, a special election, and an arbitration hearing.
Mhm.
By the way, I calculated the cost of the arbitration alone, and that was $15,913. So almost $16,000 on that arbitration between legal fees and paying the arbitrator. So you can understand that one contested issue is actually relatively costly.
And without
you
a
gotta think-
contract, we have more. I mean,
We expose ourselves to more.
Within a couple weeks, we're gonna know whether we have an LEA contract or not. And then we can, I think, we
Adjust
go
this
back
if
and
needed.
review this number
Yeah.
and say, if we're negotiating 2 contracts the next year, we might have to go higher than
I'm
that.
sure we will.
But I'll just point out, $60,000 is less than what was spent 2 of the 3 years.
Yeah.
So you have an average that's skewing it, because 1 year we spent only 39,000.
Because we didn't have any.
'Cause you weren't
agreements.
bargaining.
Because you probably weren't going for a contract.
We spent 74 the year prior,
Yeah.
and that was probably the initial contract for
Oh,
LSS, right?
Yeah.
So
We're doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
So right now we put in an extra 10,000. It seemed heavy last year, so we wanted to make sure we're on the front end of it.
And that's another number. I'd say we definitely have the 29th we take a look at.
Yeah.
Next up is business services. I'll let Corey walk through his asks.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there. I did add in $1,925 for the 2-year renewal of our actuarial valuation for financial reporting. So we have to go through an actuary, and then it's actually $3,850, but the other $1,925 will be in next year. I'll split the payment between the 2 years. And then I think that's the major driver in this one.
SunGuard pentamation. That sounds like something Disney would come up with.
Yeah,
Oh, I wish it was Disney, because that's what's behind e-finance.
Oh, okay.
It's not
it's
Disney,
actually,
I'll
and I
tell
could
you.
update. That's Power School, not SunGuard
It's not a
anymore.
fun new movie
No.
coming out.
No,
It is not.
it's terrible.
Shoot, it's terrible. Oh,
I like it because I've worked in it for so many years, but just
Yeah.
the customer service is absolutely horrid. I thought after they left
Well, there's-
SunGuard and went to Power School that maybe it would improve, but no, they just kept the same
There's-
people, just changed the name.
in every Disney movie, there's a villain.
Gorilla.
Good point. I'd compare this to Ursula.
No, definitely.
Any other questions on business? Tara, can we move on?
We're good.
Okay, good. Transportation.
Getting late.
Very straightforward, just calculated based on number of buses and the new rate for next year, plus the late bus runs. So you had an increase of $16,000. Still,
Are we at a point where ridership from CHS is low enough that we could combine bus runs?
we're actually using more buses up at CHS than we have in
Oh,
the
are we?
past, just to make it more timely for the LMS runs.
Yeah.
But I think there's also the side of it where if you're looking at enrollment in these neighborhoods and housing turnover and the complications we have with some of the routing,
Yeah.
we might be looking within the next couple of years of adding a bus into this, which would be another $50,000 to $60,000 per year. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Would we be able to reduce runs
How would you reduce runs?
by combining LMS and CHS? Like if we got a couple more buses.
So
we'll
you got to
reduce the
change
number
your
of runs?
times to be consistent with that.
Yeah, if you remember, we had that task force to study the start times. We just did not get up in the fall, or in
Yeah.
the spring. I mean, so that's
Yeah.
also part of our capital planning, I think.
Yeah.
Football team won.
All right.
Shocker.
Now we're on to HR.
They won?
All right.
Yeah, I know.
Can't believe it.
But I didn't go to the dump. Did you go to the dump? I'm like, no, I didn't go to the dump. Better hurry up home, buddy.
Wait, there's two papers?
There's, yeah, because I have HR and salaries and benefits. HR is really quick. It's one page. I only made it to the second page
This
because
much
of my
about this?
totals. I copied from last year.
Wait, what's this?
Salaries and benefits. This is salaries and benefits.
That's a fun
object
report
level.
just for you.
Okay.
Human resources budget, I decreased our advertising by $500 because with our new applicant system that we have,
Oh, yeah.
we post to School Spring for free.
Oh, I didn't know.
And that's where we're getting a lot of our applicants from. So where we didn't spend a lot last year, I don't feel like we need that much in our budget this year. And the only other really increase you're going to see in HR is $254 under dues and fees. Over the past year, I took over the supervision of payroll, so added in payroll coordinators association dues for the American Payroll Association. I also wanted to mention to you professional services. That's where I pay for benefit strategies, which is our flexible spending account management. That I think when and if our contract gets approved for our teachers, we may want to increase that line because if we get on the yellow plan, I think more employees will enroll in flexible spending. I had a little bit of an increase just this year with it, but I feel like I get more people that actually will enroll, so I'm kind of keeping an eye on that for now. Where that's pre-tax dollars that they can use. We pay $250 per employee per month for management of that account. That's all I have for that one.
Anyone have any questions on HR? So next we go into,
Salaries and benefits,
Yeah.
which this year honestly is pretty self-explanatory. We're in negotiations, as we know, for our teacher contract and our LSS contract, so there's no salary increases in there for that. For non-union members, I kept it like we did last year. There's a pool of $45,000 for the superintendent to use for administrator raises. That would be, the way that I took that was took current salaries, added 3% to everyone, and put that pool in there. And then we also did a pool for other non-union members of $29,000. That is like psychologists, tutors, the SAU employees, any employee that's not part of the LEA or the LSS bargaining agreement. For substitute salaries, I used Corey's spreadsheet where he had looked at actuals and average 3-year averages. So that's how I budgeted for long-term substitutes. As we go through the budget, under each school, there's a line for substitutes, GMS, LMS, and CHS. And then the same thing with sub-nurses. Page 1 has a lot of contractual things you'll see as we go through. 6-period classes, which is under the LEA CBA. I budgeted what we're using for this year is $43,000. Para and teacher grade changes, again, under the CBAs, I reach out to them and ask them if anyone, is planning on getting certified as a para that isn't currently certified, that could get them a pay increase. The same thing with teachers moving across the salary schedule from bachelor's to master's or master's to master's 15 or 30.
Severance payouts, you'll see 4 severance payouts currently in the budget. The employees at this point in time would like to remain confidential because it's an intent to retire. Doesn't mean they're actually going to retire.
Right,
They
so
have until
that was gonna be one of my questions. I didn't know if these were people who already retired and we're paying them out next year.
that's
These are
what
people that are gonna retire possibly
at the end of this year. Correct. There's
next year.
3 of them. One of these was an employee that left at the end of last year that was eligible for the severance, but didn't give us the intent to retire until after November 1st. So they wait a year out and it gets budgeted in this budget.
We still pay it. It's just not.
Right.
Right, you pay it.
And
you
I didn't,
just-
that's what I'm saying. I didn't know if all these were retirees from last year or they.
Right.
No, 1 from last year, 3 going forward for the end of the year. Insurances,
These are just the ones you know of right now.
correct.
Yeah, we haven't hit November 1st yet.
Right, so I still have a couple more weeks that we could get some more. Insurances, health insurance, this could also change costs.
So what did you,
I budgeted based off the green and the red plans, current plans with a 10% GMR. That's what school care said to use. They did say that they're seeing trends. They think rates are going to come in probably between 5.75 and 6% increase.
for the green plan?
Yeah, for green and red.
And how about yellow?
Yellow will probably, they're usually consistent, all about the same.
The
But
cost is already a little lower. for yellow.
exactly, so
But right
that
now you
would
based
be
on green because that's what we have.
absolutely,
At
yep,
10%.
10%. Dental insurance, we got actual increases. Dental, we're going up 3.9%. That's really not that bad. Last year we went up 3.8, and then the previous 3 years that I worked here, we didn't have an increase at all. So it might be catching us up now at this point.
I think retirement is also,
Retirement has not changed. They do a 2-year, they go out 2 years with their rates. So we're in the year coming up that we don't have to worry about that. Expanded positions, I believe you guys saw those as you were going through each department. The thing that, I don't know if you talked about this with GMS, is the only one you see in the budget is kindergarten. Actually in keeping it in the budget. It was put in there last year and that is actually in there.
and still in.
Everything else is not entered into the budget at this point. Based off this budget that we have here, there's an increase of $380,882, 0.9% increase. Most of that is health insurance at this point.
Health insurance, 165,000 in severance.
Yes.
So how much total is health insurance?
There is that object code sheet that I gave you.
Report.
So health insurance,
It's up 169.
169,000. Health insurance in our budget is
No,
$2,233,000.
it's up 169.
Yeah.
So that could go cutting almost half.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So then you're talking $300,000 increase.
Not bad.
Say not bad. But then less 165 as far as severance. And the only other change is just the increases. Any questions for Holly? Anyone?
On the budget? I just have to go back.
No.
Well, on
Weather.
I didn't know if you're gonna go page by page.
General.
Yes or no.
How you doing?
No, I mean, you can.
So my
go
only
in-
question is, I hate to keep going back to this, that I still have a problem with that $6,000 special meeting for special ed when we're not doing for any other.
Where is it, Rob?
Well, that's what I
Hold
want
on.
to know.
Well, let me tell you. Let me also tell you too, when I gave you the number for district-wide psych services, the increase for psychologists and mental health on page 29, the salary difference, the first employee listed there, it says psychologist. She is actually the mental health clinician. I need to fix that position in the system.
I'm sorry, Holly, which page is that?
29. So she's actually the mental health clinician. And there's actually a savings in her salary of $8,500 from the previous psychologist. You only see 3266 in that line because of last year, how we budgeted our non-union staff's raises. It was in one lump sum line of $2,900. So it doesn't get distributed to that actual line if that makes any sense. Corey might be able to explain it better.
Hmm?
Or not.
Speech, okay. So it's on
I'm
I
page
can't find it.
Which
30.
page is it?
It's on
account-
30.
Page
30.
30,
gonna say,
account
I'm looking
number
at it.
110. And who is it?
Forgot something.
Which name is it?
Jamie.
Jamie.
Thank
So
you.
she's the mental health clinician.
Okay, and then that's a savings from how much? 8,000?
8,500.
500.
I just wanted to mention that because I gave you the wrong number before.
Okay, thank
And then what Rob is talking about, be under 1210, must be under, on a different page than mine, but
We going back to the special.
Are you
ed
talking
one?
about the
Yeah, I remember.
6,000 in the special ed budget?
Yeah, it's up
Yeah,
on the
that's
top of a
PD.
page.
No.
maybe 15.
I
It's
asked
on my page
specifically.
15.
Okay.
Page 15.
On your
So it's-
page 15?
Yeah.
So 16.
I don't know why I have different,
Tell
I don't know why I
us
have
what it was
different
for.
pages.
Well,
She didn't really
she
say.
didn't, she
Talked about it
no,
last year.
she-
Yes,
She
this-
said specifically in her budget, it was for PD, not for,
Oh, this
And
6,000.
this 6,000 was for,
Special.
under 110 special ed salaries.
different.
This 6,000 was
I just wanna go
supposedly
back.
meetings.
when we saw this last year, I wanted to.
What page are we on?
Page
It's the top,
16.
top of 16, the first line in 16.
I just have a problem with this because we have English, we have math,
Page
we have
16, the top.
physical education.
The
We meet
salaries and
during,
benefits.
You use the
meet
one
during
in the
school
draft.
days as teams. And basically we're paying the special ed department to get the, to me, then let's vote to raise over the $30,000 for the other departments to meet, to get paid overtime to meet. I just have a personal.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
We talked about this last year.
But
No,
didn't
no,
we
no.
cut this last year?
No, I made a mistake.
He was going
I
to.
wanted to cut it, but I didn't understand how it was
We have a
done.
meeting for 45
Yes.
minutes after
Oh,
school.
so
one
in
day
the
a month.
current budget, it's 6,000.
I'll
How
get
much have
paid
we
for it.
spent so far? Do you have a,
I can
Didn't
look
she
it up.
say it was because they were
They all work at
coming from
different
different
times.
schools?
But it just, all the departments are dealing with that. All the departments
Yeah.
deal with it. And
Yeah, but like when you have a department meeting with math, you don't bring up your elementary school, your middle
Oh, yeah, they
school.
do.
You
They
do?
do
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
They do?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Mary, that's the
All
whole
the
point.
time.
Mary's trying to
That's
get
what the whole K
us
to
work,
12
the district
thing
all
is.
working together and not in
Got it,
silos.
got it.
Oh, LMS.
I mean, I hate to put the burden on Mike, but I just think that has to
Spent.
be,
We've spent $3,400 of it this year.
I just think that has to be
Salaries.
included in the early release days or, well, we don't have those, but.
Yeah, why aren't they
Curriculum.
included in?
I-
I
Why
think it would
don't
all be
they
based
break-
on timesheet. Like, I don't.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I just,
We'd have to ask
this one
Dylan.
rankles me.
yeah.
Can ask
Let us
her.
look into it a little bit, Rob. I'm thinking too that, I mean, 3,400, I'm wondering how much that's going for Paris. that
I was
need-
wondering if
I-
there's
I just
other
can't believe
things being
that's-
Well,
charged
no,
to
she's
that line.
teacher salary
Specifically said
only.
Right.
last year, it was
Right.
teachers only, not paras, to get the other.
But we've spent over half of it and we're a quarter of the way into the year.
Yes,
So it
there's
just worries
probably
me that
other
there's something
things.
else going on with it, but
Yeah.
And I
It
just,
needs a different name.
well.
Yep.
And I just didn't, because when we talked about it last year,
Why, I don't understand why it falls into salaries either.
Because you're paying it out of payroll. So that,
they're getting paid more than their contract to meet for contracted things. That's what I'm kind
That's-
of,
Mm.
that's what I don't like about it.
But any other
Part of-
seminar and that type of thing would fall in the.
But they're not leaving the district. They're
Here.
talking about district things in the district.
They
It
should, that
just-
should be their own PLC time
I
set
know.
aside. I don't
So
know.
can we find out for the next meeting?
Yeah.
we absolutely, yep.
I just don't want to lose this one again. That's why.
They meet
Well,
individually and then during staff development days, they meet as a group, just like you
This
said.
one bothers.
Do you know what I mean?
Ted noticed. Takes a lot to get him fired up. He's wicked fired up.
I'm not really wicked
I hear
fired
'em.
up.
Do we have anything else?
I had a question again about, are we going through line by line, page by page?
We can if you want. It's just
not much.
most, it's, yeah.
There's
yeah,
not
we can't
much.
do it. No, that's why
I
I'm
noticed that
explaining.
we are still budgeting for sub nurses at two schools at 2,500. One LMS is 2,100. CHS is 4,500. Is that, are we spending that? Last year we budgeted 7,400.
and I brought it
And you brought it back down.
down
But
due to
it's
what
still-
was spent.
It's still double with the other two school nurses.
Why do you budget their 14 or 11 days?
No,
plus
I've
three
just been
person-
kind of looking at the
Right, 3 or
3-year
10.
average and budgeting.
You doing?
29.
It's the only place that's broken out. Like we have nurses, we have subs at a school level, which covers paras, monitors, every other position, subs, nurses. For some reason, we have broken out separate.
Well, and they do cost more.
Yep, absolutely.
They are much more expensive. But yeah, I don't know if the other two,
29 towards the bottom.
if two of them are if those are based on their contracted sick days, yeah, it should be
It's really based on
by
usage.
usage.
And, it
Yeah, I know.
varies person to person.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else on the salaries? Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome.
All right. So, anyone have any other questions, budgetary, before we go into non-public?
So I guess just a follow-up to make sure that the public knows. Michelle, are these documents posted and available for the public? So they're on our
They were,
website.
yeah.
So anybody who's watching today or joining
Should have
in
been
here
able
at
to
the
follow
end
along, yeah.
can certainly do that. And our next school board meeting is on what, November 6th? Just trying to get a sense of, we have actually 2 Wednesdays between last Wednesday and the 6th, correct? No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we have the 23rd coming up and then the 30th, both of which, because October is the 5th, it has a 5th Wednesday. So I don't know if the board has a sense of meeting prior to the 6th, or can we get all these questions and spend time on the 6th going through the budget, addressing all the questions.
When's the first budget meeting?
It's the following day on the 7th.
We don't have enough time. It's the following day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we need to get it to we
About a
need to
week,
get
right?
any revisions
I
to the
think we need
budget
an extra
committee.
meeting,
Yeah.
because I got to go through what.
It's not gonna
what
last
was
long. It's
discussed
just
today.
going through
Yeah.
Go through changes, and I'll put a document together that.
changes than any other changes. Once everyone, again, we didn't have a lot of time. I mean, unfortunately, because of the whole process, nobody had really a lot of time to digest all this.
Yep.
So
But I want to
can-
make sure the budget committee has ample time to look over
Right.
our finalized.
So can I
That's the
propose that we try to get this turned around for next Wednesday, so the 23rd?
Have a meeting or
That we don't have a meeting scheduled, so we can meet at 6:00. I'm sure we could.
I won't be able to be there. I have a game.
I don't think it'll take long. Just be
How
updates
late
on
will your
budget.
game? Like, what would
I'll be
be?
back in town about 9, 8:30.
Oh, forget that.
Can you just send me any questions or concerns? I know there's 6,000, but if there's anything else after you go through it, Rob, just,
I'm sorry, 7:30. It's a home game. 7:30.
Yeah, and I'll be in the
I'll be
office
back by 7:30.
by 7:30, probably every day, working on this stuff to get it.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any questions, anything I can address,
So-
reach out. Call me,
Since-
Mike, in case
since
there
Rob
is
can be
something.
I'll
back in
here by
town.
7:15 actually.
Hey, what if we did a 7:00 meeting? It's an hour later than normal.
On the 23rd?
What if we did 7:00 on the 23rd? It's not a full meeting. It's just a
I'll
budget
be-
work session.
Between 7 and 7:30 depending.
So if we start at 7, we'll plan 7 to 9 and our goal is to be done before 9.
Okay.
Well, before 9, and Rob will come a little bit late. Does that work?
okay, so we're gonna ask Josh to come to that meeting?
We'll invite Josh. Yep. We need to invite somebody from TV.
Yeah.
Because it's an extra special meeting that we're scheduling, so.
Throw the invite out there right now, for cable.
All right, so I'm gonna schedule it then on mine.
I'm gonna send
23rd.
one of those little
That's 7.
reminder blogs.
You want one? I'll send it to you. I'll send it your way.
Love those. I have like 20 calendars going.
So anybody in the public who wants to join us, that's your other opportunity to have public input on the budget, or if you've looked at the documents or have comments from today, they can join us then. Okay.
So we have no one here from the public except Matt, unless he has some comments or,
Yeah, actually, I got a couple of things for you. Well, I got one thing. Does anybody have any resolution ideas and want to put anything in for resolutions?
for,
Get me some information over the next week or so because it's due November 4th.
let's see if anyone has, that can be also a discussion on the 23rd.
We could.
If you want to put that on the agenda as a reminder
Okay.
for everyone if they have anything. So public input? None? All right, we'll go to non-public session. RSA 91-A:311.